Hello everyone. Welcome to the third M&A Masterclass with Andrew J. Sherman, hosted by Firmex. My name is Elizabeth Cayley and I lead the product strategy here at Firmex, and I'll be happy to facilitate today's class with you. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I will quickly review a few details. For your convenience, your microphones and your telephones have been muted. If you have a question during the masterclass, please submit it using the GoToWebinar question panel, and we'll address as many questions as we can before the end of the class. If you are a Twitter user and want to share your thoughts or questions during the class, please use the hashtag #FirmexMC and follow us at Firmex. And of course, at the end of today's masterclass, we will also be announcing the lucky winners of one of Andrew Sherman's books, either Mergers and Acquisitions from A to Z, or his new book, Harvesting Intangible Assets. So stay tuned for those details. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joel Lessem, CEO of Firmex.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just for those of you, there's a lot of people on this call that are Firmex clients and know all about Firmex, but just for those that don't, we are focused on providing the best virtual data room solution in the industry for managing corporate transactions and financial compliance. And we have in 4 or 5 years accumulated over 125,000 users who are running close to, we were here at 10,000 deals in the last 18 months. And we present this webinar as really a value-added service to the community in offering educational resources. And I'd like today to introduce Andrew Sherman, who go to the next slide, thank you. Mr. Sherman is a partner in the Washington office of Jones Day. He served as a legal and strategic advisor to dozens of Fortune 500 companies and hundreds of emerging growth companies. He has counseled them on a variety of corporate and commercial transactions, from franchising, joint ventures, capital formation, finance, and M&A. In his spare time, this is a fact I always find quite incredible, he's written 23 books, including the American Bar Association textbook on due diligence. He's a regular guest on most major news, television networks, radio programs in the U.S. and teaches at Georgetown University. He is general counsel to the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. He's received awards from Fortune, Inc. magazine for his entrepreneurial ideas and supporting emerging business. So Andrew, on behalf of Firmex and the hundreds of lawyers, investment bankers, and corporate executives participating in this masterclass, I'd like to thank you for doing this 4-part series with the Firmex community. Over to you.
Joel, thank you. No matter how many times you do that intro, and this is now our 3rd session, for those of you that have been with us at the beginning, it just gets better and better, so I want to thank you for it. Before we get into the next slide, let me just do a little bit of level setting around due diligence and some of the things that are going on right now, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing given the role of Firmex in the community, but there's some trends that trouble me. One of the things I've been following pretty closely here has been the failure of MF Global. There's been a lot of subpoenas back and forth on both the MF Global and the Solyndra matter, the failure of the $500 million loss that the government took. And what you're seeing, without getting too philosophical here on a Thursday afternoon, but what you're seeing is the after effects of poor due diligence at the outset. You're seeing the world that we've become, which is a distrusting, skeptical, I'm not going to show you things unless you subpoena me for them kind of environment. And that's very troubling to me as an M&A and transactional lawyer whose, tools of the trade rely on due diligence to be effective. So, we are in an era, on the one hand, of great transparency with the impact of Web 2.0 and 8 years after Sarbanes-Oxley, and in another way we've become more opaque in that it seems like people don't want to share information with each other unless they've been subpoenaed to do so, and often when you're talking about the failure of MF Global or the Solyndra deal, it's way too late, too many taxpayer dollars have been wasted, too much time and effort has been expended, and to be very blunt, too many lawyers have gotten involved. So, I just want everybody to be aware of, what's going on out there, what attitudes might people take when information is requested of them, how quickly they may populate the data room, And so, Joel, let me just throw it back to you. I mean, are you seeing any trends in terms of, people sort of populating the data room on a more select basis or doing it on a phased basis? What are you seeing out there in the Firmex community?
Well, we don't really see too much. Part of it is because of all the privacy rules we follow, and we're a SAS 70 certified shop. So we do know that folks do run stage deals where they'll set up multiple indexes and so forth and so on. We are, one of the things we are seeing in the intermediary community, when I say, I mean investment banks and law firms, is rather putting the task to their clients, saying, okay, go choose a data room provider and set up a data room and pay for the data room. They're making it part of their infrastructure because they're in the business of doing deals. And so I think that they know how to present information, they know how to get information organized earlier in the process, so there are no surprises later on. And I think that makes for more clarity and transparency through the process, and also efficiency.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I totally understand the sensitivity of confidentiality. I meant, as people are asking questions, maybe people new to the tool, are you finding, or is there any data kept on, just how populated the room can become or when it gets populated? I mean, I think that even if those things can't be tracked, it's something that we should be aware of. The data room, as we'll see as we go through today's program, is a critical piece. I can't remember a deal I've worked on now without a virtual data room, but it's one piece of the due diligence. I want to make sure that particularly any younger associates, younger investment bankers, younger lawyers or accountants listening in, never use the data room as a crutch, and it's not a substitute for sometimes the kinds of face-to-face, on-site diligence that needs to be done to get at the avoidance of some of the problems that lead to the cylinders in MF Global. So anyway, we'll talk about that as we go. So the program is building on our last session in October, which was focused on buy-side M&A, qualifying your seller and uncovering hidden value. And if you think about it sequentially, we are now in our third session together, which is on to due diligence. So presumably, if you're listening in as a buyer or advisor to buyers, a selection has been made that meets the acquisition planning and selection criteria, has passed through the screens and filters, appears to be a strategic fit. If we were saying it in dating parlance, we've been on the third or fourth date with the candidate, and it's now time to really open up and learn a lot more about this company before we buy them. And if you're here on the sell side, it's, what are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about that a buyer is likely to ask, and you need to have at both their laptop fingertips as well as in management presentations and on-site due diligence visits. Most of today's program will focus on the buy side, the conductor of the due diligence, but if you're on the sell side, you really could just reverse that process, and the more you can understand about the buyer's process, the better prepared you'll be for the overall process. In our next session in December, we're going to be looking at the transaction as if it's already closed and looking at some of the post-closing challenges when the rubber hits the road, and we'll be looking at some segments of content from my new book, which Elizabeth was kind enough to mention, on harvesting intangibles. So with that backdrop, let's jump in.